Yeah, so my name is Christiana Owusu Ankoma, and I am the HHS educator over here in Shelby County. October 1st, right? Yeah, I think 1st or 3rd, I always forget now. We'll make it 2 years since I've been with Extension. I'm from Arizona. So I'm going into my third winter, and I don't know if I'm still used to it yet, but I'm doing my best. But anyway, so today's lesson is talking about physical activity and the importance of just moving more. I think, I don't know if you've heard, but this year the health department, like nationally, is more promoting just striving to move more and not necessarily having to do anything super intense or doing something that's out of your comfort zone, but moving more in the activities that you already do. So we're going to kind of talk about this over the course of time. If I can get this to work. Oops. All right. So I generally like to know kind of what's going on if I'm in a session. So I've pointed out some of the things we'll talk about. So we'll talk about some definitions related to physical activity. We'll touch on some of the benefits. We'll discuss the recommendations. So how much physical activity a week should we be getting, or how much should we aim to get every day? And then we'll discuss or identify some practical steps that we can start to incorporate in our daily routines to be more physically active. And I did want to also mention, I know it's a smaller group, but I tend to talk fast. So if I'm talking too fast and you're not understanding me, don't hesitate to raise your hand or kind of get my attention. So I'll stop. I know it's something I've been working on. Sometimes it's nerves, but most times I just talk fast in general. So feel free to stop me at any point. If you want to put comments in the chat box, you're welcome to. But since it's a smaller group, we can just go ahead and pause and talk as time goes. All right, so to begin, I kind of like to pose a question to the group or whoever is with me. So when you think of physical activity, how would you define it? And do either of you want to share how you personally think of physical activity or the definition that pops in your head when you think of physical activity?
Well, I don't sit on the couch. I
Yeah.
move around.
Yeah, moving around. That's good. Yeah.
I
How about
think
you,
my
Brooke?
first thought is always like an exercise routine of some kind, whatever it is, whether it's go somewhere or like it's intentional.
Exactly. Great. You two did excellent. So, the kind of standard or technical definition of physical activity is any movement of the body that requires you to expend energy. So, as you mentioned, not sitting on the couch, moving around, or exercise is a type of physical activity, as we'll touch on. But it's kind of that intentional piece of making up your mind that, okay, I could be sitting idly, but I could also stand and maybe walk in place as I'm watching TV or as I'm cooking this dish. So finding ways to add that intentional piece to increase the level or intensity of it. And Bernie, you mentioned exercise. So exercise, and we often, I know I tend to sometimes use it interchangeably. It's that planned physical activity. So you deciding that today I'm going to go for a walk for 10 minutes. That can be deemed or identified as exercise because there's that intentional piece, and your goal is to increase your level of physical fitness. And physical fitness, which we also kind of, I know I do sometimes to use it interchangeably, that's more related to an individual's ability to perform the different levels of physical activities. So how capable are you of going for a walk? Do you maybe need some assistance in doing that? Or can you on your own go for a walk for 5 minutes as opposed to somebody who can maybe run a marathon? So what is your level of capability? So that's more physical fitness. Um, all right, and there are three categories or three types of physical activity. And I think these are maybe more understood or better known now, but there are aerobic activities, which I think is what the general population we more hear of. And these are activities that require you to move the large muscles. So thinking of like maybe your arms or your legs in a rhythmic manner. So kind of a consistent, some kind of pattern for a sustained period of time. So think about when you're going for a run, you're moving all those, like your arms, your legs are moving, and it's intentional, it's planned, and it's maybe for 5 minutes, it's maybe for 10 minutes, but it's planned and it's consistent. There are also muscle strengthening activities, and these are designed to increase your skeletal muscle strength, power, and endurance. So again, thinking of as you're running, you have that motion going, your legs are getting that intensity, or kind of you're working those out. So you're increasing your strength in those muscles as you're moving. And then bone strengthening, it's kind of similar to muscle strengthening. It's when you're intentionally putting force or tension on those bones. So again, if you're running, there's that tension as each time you step or stomp. There's that tension on your bones. If you're weightlifting, there's that intensity or tension on your arm, your bones in your arm. So all that is being done to promote growth and also to maintain and help you build strength in those muscles or bones. So those are the three categories or types. Are there any questions about those ones at all?
I think the bone one's pretty important for women as we age. They're always talking about bone density and keep your bones strong.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm not always, even though I look slim, I'm not always the best at being physically active. So I try to keep some weights by me just to casually lift them when I'm watching something on Netflix, or so I'm incorporating them, because it can be kind of hard at times to remember to do it. Or if I'm lifting groceries, I live by myself, so I'll carry maybe 10 bags when I should carry a light load. I'm thinking of it as exercise. So finding ways that you can incorporate those activities in your daily routine, so you don't have to go out and maybe buy different exercise items or things of that nature. So keeping that in mind as you're working to get active. All right, so as far as the benefits, I think at this point, I think we all know how important it is to be physically active. But it's also been defined that being physically active is one of the best things that we can do for our health. It has the benefit of helping us mitigate or can prevent certain issues or conditions as we're getting older. Sorry, my notes are on the side. It can also help you to be better able to be more independent for a longer period of time. So again, if you're actively being physically active, it can reduce maybe bone fractures in the future, which can help you be able to live more independently and more comfortably over time. So there are a lot of health benefits, but I've identified a few here on the slide so it can improve your overall quality of life. I know the times when I'm being intentionally physically active, I know I sleep better or I just feel better. In general, it can reduce your anxiety, and why I think most of us work out or become physically active. It has the benefit of slowing or reducing weight gain. I think I mentioned for me, I know it helps me sleep better. And then it can also, as Bertie mentioned, improve our bone health. It also, as I think we generally know, can prevent some of those chronic diseases. So helping mitigate maybe heart disease, diabetes, hypertension. These are all health conditions that you can help prevent or kind of mitigate if you're being intentionally physically active. So there are a lot of health benefits. And again, any kind of movement that you're doing is better than none. So trying to see different ways you can include it in your daily routine. All right, so as far as the technical guidelines or how much physical activity should we be striving to get every day? Ideally, it's recommended that we get between 2.5 hours to 5 hours every week. So at minimum, you should be doing at least 2.5 hours of exercise every week. And if you break that down over the course of 5 days, that's about 30 minutes a day. And I think that can be a little bit more manageable for people instead of thinking, oh, now I have to be active for 2 hours today or 2.5 hours. That can be a little overwhelming. So breaking it down and also starting at your level of physical fitness. So I know I'm not a runner, so I wouldn't by any means, go sign up for a marathon, because that wouldn't be the smartest thing. I know my physical fitness is not at that level yet. So kind of understanding yourself and knowing, okay, maybe I can start with a 10-minute walk around the neighborhood. And then maybe after 2 weeks, you can increase it to a jog or increasing the level as you get more comfortable. But doing your best to start somewhere and then striving to hit that 2.5 mark. And I think, again, as you get more comfortable, approximately 5 hours is the most ideal, but at minimum, you want to strive to get that 2.5 hours in every week. And you do want it to be moderate intensity aerobic activities. So I think I touched on walking, running, things of that nature. So activities that kind of get your blood pumping, you can feel your breath kind of picking up a bit, but with the moderate activities, you're still able to talk. So if you're maybe going for a light jog with a friend, you can still maybe communicate back and forth. And with COVID, we want to make sure you have your face covered, you're maintaining that distance, but there is an intensity to it, but you're still able to talk. But there's also vigorous intensity, which I personally am not on the vigorous spectrum yet. Those are the activities that you can't really talk, or you have to pause and catch your breath. So if I'm going for a sprint, I can't necessarily stop and have a conversation with a friend without kind of panting or things of that nature. So that's kind of the difference between the moderate versus the vigorous. With the moderate, you feel that your breath is kind of heavy, but you're still able to communicate and talk, versus vigorous, where you're panting, you can't really get your words out. But the vigorous intensity activity is good because it's really pushing your body and working all those muscles, working the bones, things of that nature. And the more intensity, or the more intense the activity is, kind of the less time you have to do it. So again, if maybe you're doing vigorous intensity activities all throughout the week, so if you know you go for an intense run every day, your time that you're required to be active is kind of lessened. I hope that makes sense. So keeping that in mind as well. But again, starting where you're comfortable, starting at the moderate level, and then increasing or building up over time. All right.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
So after you do that and build up your intensity, is there a level that it does you no more good? You're doing the same all the time. Should you vary it?
I think from what I've read, and again, I'm not the biggest expert, but I think they say that more physical activity, it can't be harmful. Maybe it's not gonna be, what's the word? It's not going to, as you're mentioning it, maybe you feel like you've plateaued out, but the more active you are, the more health benefits you're gaining. So I don't think you can necessarily plateau, at least for me, and knowing my level. I feel like I consistently, like, I climb up a little bit and I kind of come back down. So perhaps runners are at their peak, but I think for us as the general populace who aren't maybe, well, I can speak for myself. I'm not an athlete by any means, so I'm not always being physically active and training every single day. So I think for us as individuals, I don't think we can really reach that peak, but it doesn't hurt to be physically active or to continue to do so. So I would advise that even if you think, oh, I've reached the peak and I'm great, still continuing to do it so we don't fall back into that initial stage of being inactive, or kind of our muscles kind of having to relearn those things. I hope that made some sense. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, I just didn't know if you should like do more one day and then do less the next day and then do more the next day. If that would work. What's that? The heart rate, getting up and down.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if I've seen that, but I can definitely check on that and try to get you an answer for that. But I think as long as the summation of the time is meeting that 2.5 hours at minimum, I think that's the best thing to do. I don't think it's wrong if maybe you do 10 minutes and then you do 40 minutes a day. I think it's over the week, it kind of coming together and building up. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So again, we've talked about the amount of time you need to be physically active. So I wanted to bring up a few things to kind of keep in mind before you really get out there and get going. I mentioned this a lot previously, but you want to remember to start slowly and starting at a level you're comfortable with, and keeping in mind that it's ultimately to help you maintain a healthy body weight, or to help you to feel healthier. It's not necessarily about losing weight or kind of being at the standard that everybody expects you to be, but doing what you can so your own body, like, you're feeling better within yourself. So starting at where you're comfortable, and also making sure to talk to your doctor if you have any chronic health conditions or symptoms of chronic health conditions, just so you're not endangering yourself trying to be physically active. It's also important to, before you even start working out, you want to remember to incorporate a warming up and cooling down period. So doing activities that are of lower intensity, which can help your muscles kind of maybe loosen up before you start, and helping them to cool down and come back to kind of their rest before you wrap up your workout. And this has the benefit of both preventing potential injuries. So if you haven't stretched for maybe 3 years and you just go out for a run, you're gonna be very, very sore, and you might even end up pulling something because you haven't loosened up those muscles or those joints or those tendons before doing it. So you want to always make sure you do your little stretches. So, and I know I do home workouts occasionally, and I try to do the little arm stretches, leg stretches. I still end up being sore, but I think it helps a little bit. So keeping that in mind before you get fully physically active. And then as far as the exercises, I know we've touched on a few of them, but are there any other exercises that you can think of that maybe we as, I say we as regular individuals, I'm a little strange, but what are some exercises that you think we can all start with besides like maybe going for a walk? What are some activities that maybe you do currently, or some activities that you think you might be interested in doing that can help you meet that 2.5-hour goal?
I was just recently on a Wisconsin quilt show, and they had a lady who had little 8-minute videos of stretches and exercises that you could just watch. And I don't know if she was a yoga instructor, but it was really good. Like if you sit too long, or if your shoulders and neck got tight, or your feet were swelling, and none of them were more than 8 minutes long. And so I shared that link with my coworkers. I was like, hey, when you need a 15-minute break, do one of these. And they were super simple. It was really easy to follow. There was one with hands, like your hands when you're doing a mouse, or I'm painting, or I'm cutting corn, or canning, and I keep doing the same thing over and over. And those were so helpful. I could really feel like, I was loosening or stretching. I can share that link with the homemakers because it was about 20 little short videos that I thought were really helpful.
Very cool. Okay, so in the next few slides, I did kind of find some videos. They're a little longer, but I often will search for videos that I can do at home. But again, I don't know how comfortable some of our homemakers are with working on those. So there are definitely things that we can put together. But as you're able, it's definitely beneficial to access some of those online resources and online tools. There's so much out there. There's chair yoga. I watch some, just like you're saying, 5-minute stretches or 5-minute ab workouts you can do. So there are a lot of things available online. I think us as Extension, if you're not able to access those resources, we're here to kind of be that bridge where we can pull those resources and make them available. So talking to Extension office, or again, if you have questions particularly or specifically related to this PowerPoint, or if maybe there's a question you think I can help with, I'm always available and willing to help as needed too.
I think some of the chair exercises would be helpful. Something you can stand in place or sit and just raise feet and hands and shoulders and, neck or whatever. Those would probably be helpful for, well, anybody, but especially someone who may have some limited mobility.
Yeah, some of the videos that we'll look at do have those, and I didn't load them, so hopefully they'll behave. All right, so now we're going to, I feel like I talked really fast, but I wanted to have us kind of practice some of these activities you had. So I looked up some warm-ups, some stretches, and chair exercises, and these are all, they're all on YouTube. And again, the links are included in the notes, so when I send them over to you, Bernie, you'll be able to access those. And I think you can print it off and include the notes. I think we have that capacity, so your ladies should be able to get that too, but I can also just email you the links if it's easier to have it in a clickable format.
Oh, either way, yeah, that way we can try, I can try it both ways.
Okay, well, let me stop sharing so I can get on the internet. Hopefully it'll work. All righty.
Your screen's not sharing right now. You looking for?
Yep, I'm gonna try to get the video loaded because I had to stop sharing the PowerPoint and then load.
Perfect. Okay.
I think
we're trying everything, Gail.
Hey,
talk to your
I'm right here.
Treatment.
Well, and that's why it's helpful to have you too, because then we can see how it works outside of our offices.
Oh yeah, you're kind of secluded there.
your entire toolbox with this one crazy and revolutionary.
Okay, let me see which one is this. Okay, I clicked the chair exercise. There was a warm-up one. Let me make sure I have that one loaded. Could you ladies hear my screen making all that noise?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, starting with it.
Okay, I think I have it up. So we'll do a little bit of the warm up, and let me see if it'll let me share my screen before I. What? Okay, I think it should be behaving. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's
A
great.
7-minute. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and let me see if I can do full screen and still control it. Can you still see it? I never know with Zoom because I'm like, I don't know
I
what
know. Yeah, you're not sure what
Yeah.
it'll do or not do with you.
Okay, and this is kind of the seated piece you're talking about, but it's the warm up. So making sure you, even if you're doing a seated exercise, you still want to include that warm up period. So you're loosening up your muscles and joints before you get started. And I clicked through this last night. So we'll, since it's a smaller group, we'll sit through a little bit of it and then we'll look at
Okay.
the actual exercise piece. Sorry, did you say something, Bernie?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard a comment. My bad. All righty.
Next, I'm working our way down just to warm everything up before we get into the
So you
exercises.
can get seated and
Let's move
comfortable.
over to the left,
That's not all.
now back to the front, now over to the right, now back to the front, now again to the left, now back to the front, nice and slow to the right. That's it. Make sure you're sitting up nice and tall in your chair. Now let's look up to the ceiling, going as far as we can go, nice, slow and controlled. Now back to the start position and looking down to the ground. Back to the start position. That's it. We're going to go to the left. Back to the front, now to the right. To the front, looking up to the ceiling and down to the ground. And bring your head back to the start position. Now let's go, moving our neck up, looking as far back as we can. And bring our chin to our chest, looking down. Excellent work, guys. Now let's do some shoulder rolls. Rolling those shoulders up, back and down.
Mine are cracking.
Down,
And I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
back, down, and rolling forward, up, back, down. Let's go for 3, 2, and last one. Excellent work. Let's bring those arms up as far as we can. Thumbs facing up towards the ceiling when we're doing this. So as I bring my arms back down, as you can see, my thumbs are facing out. They come up, point to the ceiling. We'll bring those arms up as far as we can. Bring your arms back down. Let's go for 2 more. Coming up. And last one. Bring it down. And back up. Excellent work. Coming back down. Shaking out those arms. That's it. Now let's work those elbows, getting some movement in those elbows. Coming up, and down, up, and down, up, and down. Let's go 2 more. Up and down. Great job. Shaking out those hands. Let's just close those hands, open them and close them. That's it. Following along with me. Let's go for 3, 2, 1. Great job. Shaking out those fingers now.
Okay, we'll do.
That's it. Moving all your fingers, getting them all.
All right, so that's kind of to give you an idea of what's out there, but you do want to make sure you're doing that warm up and getting your, because I could feel some of the stretches even in my back and with my neck too. So now let's look at the actual exercise and we'll do maybe another 2 minutes of this one.
Now, as always, if you haven't done the warm-up video yet, make sure you do the warm-up video. If you have done the video, let's get straight into it. Sitting up nice and tall in your chair. What we're going to start with today are some shoulder abductions. So we're going to place our arm by our side, thumbs facing out to the side, and we're going to lift our arms up nice and straight. We're going to hold that at 90 degrees for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to bring them down. Then we're going to lift back up, hold for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's bring those back down. Keeping your arms straight throughout this exercise with your thumbs facing out to the side. Let's go up again, sitting up nice and tall. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring it down. Let's go up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bringing it down. And again, coming up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bringing those arms down, shaking them out. And now we're going to do the same movement. We're coming up as far as we can go. Nice and high, holding for 3 seconds, keeping that stomach tight. 1, 2, 3, and bringing it down. And let's come up again. Nice and tall. Let's go for 5 seconds this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bringing it down and up again. Coming up nice and high. Let's go 1, 5. Bringing those arms down. And let's go again. Coming up nice and high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great work. Bring those arms down, shaking out those arms, taking a deep breath in and out. Let's do some shoulder rolls. Let's go 10 shoulder rolls. 1, 2, sit up nice and tall, keeping that stomach tight. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and last one, 10. Shaking out those arms again. Okay, let's get into the...
Okay, so I wanted to just give a bit of an idea of what's out there, but as you can see, we did some of the similar things that were done in the warm-up, but in the exercise portion, it's a bit more intense. So that's why it's important to still warm up to kind of get your, as I mentioned, your muscles and joints ready to do that activity. Okay, let me go back to sharing my PowerPoint. Those were kind of some of the exercises, and I think when I was looking, I found a lot of those kind of resources, and there are some that you're more standing, but it's still allowing you to sit in your chair. But I don't know if you felt it, but I could really feel all those movements and feel the intensity of it. So even if you're sitting, or you may feel like, oh, I'm starting slow, whatever the case may be, you still feel it. And as your breath is kind of picking up, you know, you're getting those exercises in. So again, like I think I've been saying this multiple times, but starting as you are able or where you're able, and working with things that you already have. So if you want to work on that weightlifting piece, the example he showed us, it was just his own hand and maybe just increasing the force as you bring your arm up. So you're increasing the intensity that way. Or if you have maybe a can of tomato soup or something that can bring that added weight, looking at what you already have within your home, so you don't have to go purchase something else, or doing activities that don't really require to purchase anything else. So going for a walk, going for a jog. You may have an old bike in your garage that you can kind of dust off, get the tires rotated and fixed, and use that. Yeah, so as you are starting, just thinking of what you already have within your reach, and then over time building up as you go on. So I think those are the main things. I want to thank you for taking some time to join me today. And I hope you feel encouraged, or even feel that you have at least one practical thing you can take away from today and start implementing right away. And I will reiterate that there are a lot of resources online. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. My information is on this PowerPoint.